Thomas is joining us. I do not see my fan anywhere.
It's over here at my feet.
He took it. He reclaimed
you were
it.
using
I'm no dummy.
the fan.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's warm in these
Thomas
parts.
has
He's a
one
fan
fan.
man.
Yes,
Okay,
I am,
joining us
Nicole.
now with the first look at the new issue of Time magazine, the Washington bureau chief for Time, Michael Scherer. Michael, you've got the cover story. Who is the most interesting man in politics?
Randall Howard Paul, the junior senator from Kentucky.
Really, and why?
Because politics is about storytelling, and the stories almost never change. And here's a guy who's really trying to change the whole narrative of how we think about Republican Party versus Democratic Party. He's going around the country talking to conservative, all-white, straight and narrow, preppy audiences and saying we've got to embrace the freaks and the weirdos and the long hairs and the guys with tattoos. He's going, like other Republicans have done unsuccessfully, to minority communities saying, I want to do a bunch of things you haven't heard Republicans say in the past need to be done. He's going to young people around the country. And more important than that, I think, is that Republicans, he's not the first person to try and color outside the lines, but Republicans, because they're in this sort of demographic bind, are actually listening to him, and he's got a soapbox and he's actually making changes.
Well, what did you find surprising? Why did you find him to be the most interesting man in politics? What did you not know?
I think there's a spending time with him, there's a strange contradiction. He's incredibly bold in his positions. He's also incredibly cautious and wary of the process. He's not a great campaigner yet. I think he can get better. But he's also, the way in which he slices positions is actually very interesting. It's almost like you're interviewing him as like being in a graduate seminar on sort of how you can still be a conservative and hold these views without being inconsistent. To get from point A to point B, to explain himself, he doesn't really contradict himself, but it takes 3 or 4 jumps to really slice the issues he's after. It's a far more intellectual approach to politicking than we've seen.
We've sort of been watching him, Nicole. Just bottom line, your gut. Do you think he's viable?
Well, when I saw that this was the most interesting man in politics, I said to you, yeah, I think he is. I was going to ask about, I don't know is the answer. I don't know if he's viable. He is so different from where the Republican Party tends to go. He scares me on foreign policy. So in my gut, at a moment when we're at war with ISIS, I'm scared that he wouldn't believe in a strong American role in that. So I don't know in my gut if he's viable, because I don't know how many Republicans feel that way. I don't know that Joe does even. But I was most intrigued that he just went to Ferguson and did a meeting in Ferguson. Not only have no other Republicans done that I'm aware of, not that many white politicians have done that. So what I find interesting is his fearlessness. I think it is exactly what the Republican Party needs. And I wonder how you find Republicans feeling about Rand Paul.
They're very excited, especially the younger crowds that I saw him with. I'll tell you a story about the Ferguson. What's interesting, not just that he went and spoke, but during that conversation, he actually said he wanted to increase social spending for job training, things like that, in urban communities. You don't hear many Republicans, especially sort of a government cutter like Rand Paul, saying that, but he's proposing taking nonviolent offenders out of prison, using the money saved from that, increasing social spending in cities. He's playing a game that Democrats typically play, which is to go to various groups around the country and say, I'm going to give you more money, except he's saying I'm going to pay for it by cutting dramatically in other parts of government. So it's a very odd thing. I think the question about viability is an interesting one, but may not be the right one right now. I think it's a long way from him becoming the nominee, but he's going to have a huge impact on what the nominee, whoever it is saying.
Right.
Michael, I get the the most interesting man in politics, and I get all the interesting things he says and the places he goes that are very different from a lot of perceptions about Republicans. And my question to you, maybe unanswerable, is what does this say about the rest of a very bland, cookie-cutter, consultant, brain-dead series of politicians on both sides of the aisles, that Rand Paul is the most interesting one?
I think he doesn't have a lot of competition. I think that's right. I think we're at a part of politics where the Republicans are sort of painted themselves into a corner, are fearful of getting out of it. Democrats feel like, Hillary Clinton, if you read her book, she can just speak exactly like you'd expect Hillary Clinton to speak and say nothing else that surprises you, and she's going to win the nomination and win the presidency. So, I think we're in a dry spell. I think at the same time you see huge numbers of people in the country really increasingly sick of both parties, and so there's an opportunity.
All right, we'll be looking for the new issue of Time. Michael Scherer, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I know. Did you see that poll?
Yeah.
We talked about this.
That's shocking to me.
Yeah. There are a couple others like that.
Really?
But you didn't. Iowa was not the.
I know.
easiest
No, I
place
know.
for
No, I'm surprised about his number, not hers.
Yes, exactly. That's why he's on the cover
But I
of
think
Time
what Michael
magazine.
points out, when you start to drill down on social issues with Rand Paul, he's going to start to lose the otherness factor real fast.
When you give money and cut money, you're helping and hurting the same population.
Yeah.
By the way, Michael can write.
For sure.
Yes, he can.
For sure.
All right, coming up, so many unanswered questions surrounding the Ebola crisis.